does my gay marriage affect your marriage? And the answer is it doesn't.
There's no sound. Ah, I see that now. Okay, there we go.
Aaron in Massachusetts, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Aaron.
Hi, Ben. I saw the phone number on Twitter. So I'm not looking to argue or anything. I just have a hard time understanding when people say they want small government, but they want to make gay marriage illegal. Wouldn't it be smaller government to just let gay people get married, or is that something you want to be decided on the state level rather than the federal level?
So, I can already see why this is the person that they chose to make their argument. This is actually really easy. They're just lying. When conservatives say that they want small government, that's not actually what they're arguing for. What they're arguing for is specific government. What they want is precision government to target outliers in their society that they want weeded out, essentially. The small government, big government thing, it's just a meme. It's just a meme. It's not real. Anybody who tells you they want small government, or they want, whatever size government, and that means no. They're just lying. They're just lying, because at the end of the day, the size of the government isn't important. It's the priorities of that government, and also the mechanisms that you afford that government to, enact their priorities. So it has nothing to do with small, and it has nothing to do with big. It's the same reason why, even though when Roe v. Wade was overturned, a lot of conservatives weren't super keen on making that like a big victory point. And that's mainly because, to them, it's revealing to the public that they're not interested in government that's like, small and out of your business. That's all marketing. They want government that gives them power. If it means that they have to frame it as small, they'll do it. If it means they have to frame it that it's big, they'll do that too. It doesn't mean anything. The small government, big government thing is not a real argument. It's not a real belief of theirs. They don't believe in a governmental size. They believe in power. That's it. That's all they believe in.
So first of all, it is a state level issue, not a federal level issue. Second of all, when you talk about small government versus large government, what we're talking about when we talk about the state being involved in marriage is essentially subsidies for marriage, right? So you can make the small government case to go completely libertarian on marriage. I've heard that case, and I don't necessarily totally disagree with that, right? In some ways, I would prefer, in most ways, if the argument is going to be either the state subsidizes all marriages, gay and straight, or the state subsidizes no marriages, gay or straight, I would prefer the latter, because I don't think the government should be, if the government's not going to set a moral standard, I don't think the government should set a moral standard.
Right. So notice, he would rather a system where either he has power or no one has power, because he knows that his political ideology is the favored one when it comes to the institutions that we already have built.
And we can just go completely libertarian. If you're talking about which social relationships ought to be subsidized by government, my answer is the social relationships that ought to be subsidized by governments are the ones that produce children, and that would be man, women, baby. And so that is the answer to the.
Which also, there's a lot of people who aren't married who equal man, woman, baby. There's quite a few people, actually. You don't need marriage for childbirth. You don't need marriage is completely optional in terms of childbirth.
The question, as far as big government versus small government, first of all, I think that dichotomy is sometimes too rough, because I want big government when it comes to hardcore policing in crime-ridden areas. Is that big government? It's not libertarian. Right? I want the government to be
Ben
able to make sure
wants
that crimes
power.
don't rise in my area. That's not a small government policy. So I think that the question is correct use of government versus non-correct use of government. But if you're going to make a small, big government dichotomy, the question really should be whether the government should be involved in marriage at all. Now, when I say that gay marriage, I don't think the government should subsidize that or the government should, quote unquote, not legalize it. What I don't mean is that you're criminalized if you go to your local church and get a piece of paper. If you're two dudes and you go to your local Unitarian church and you get a piece of paper and you put it on your wall, is that a criminal activity? No. Should it be a criminal activity? No. But that's not the same thing as the state issuing you a license that says that you're a married couple using the same word that has been historically applied to a man and a woman.
Yeah, you shouldn't be equal to the straights. That's all this is. Again, I said this in the last one with Matt Walsh. This is just we don't want you to be equal to us. Now, Ben's going to use like a historical argument, which who cares? Like here's the fun part. It's not 1890. We're done. That's it. That's the entire argument I need to make. Guess what? Times have changed. Deal with it. I don't know what to tell you. Like there's not really the thing he's talking about, which, he mentioned earlier that it should be based on what produces like a family, right? But like the whole point of having a family is to produce more people to add to your community, to your society, whatever. You don't need from a biological standpoint, you'll have the man, woman, sperm, egg situation, but you can have sperm, you can have eggs without the man or the woman. They simply, you don't need the rest of that. You can just have, we have adoption. It doesn't mean adoption isn't a legal or sensible way for people to get married around, is the adoption of a child. So
because the goal of society is to incentivize man, woman, children.
And why would that be the goal of society? So again, obviously his goal for society is very different, but I'd also argue his goal for society is doesn't really do anything. The goal of society is to produce more children. Why? Why would a society want to produce more children? What's the when it comes down to it, why do you need marriage for that? Now you could say marriage is a aspect of childbirth. It's not, but you could say that it is, and that married couples produce better workers, quite frankly. But again, that's not even exclusive to, that's not exclusive to men and women. As long as you have, studies have shown that as long as you have two parents, regardless of their genders, that the outcomes are better for children when there's two parents. Lord knows what would happen if they had three.
Yeah, I could see you not subsidizing any marriage. That would seem probably fair. I think that the marriage.
Do you honestly think? Does anybody honestly think that if we went the route of the government is not going to subsidize any marriages, do you think that Ben wouldn't then make the argument the exception should be, like after the point in which the government stopped doing all subsidies, do you think Ben would argue it's in a society's best interest to promote heterosexual couples and heterosexual marriage? Do you not think he would then just turn around and make the argument, make the biological argument? He just would. That's all that would happen. Ben wants a flattening of it to take everyone's rights, then line up for rights to be exclusively given to him.
Subsidizing. Yeah, I mean, Aaron, I'll let you finish in 1 second. The only case to subsidizing marriage is that society does, in fact, have a pretty strong interest in the family unit. It does have an interest in you producing children, considering that we need children in order to pay for all of the vast social welfare.
And family unit means what? To Ben, it's what? A wife, a husband, and a child. That's not what a family is. It's just not. Families are chosen families. Families are a lot of different things. Hell, like under his definition, like families wouldn't count if you're not biologically related to somebody. Like what he's talking about is society raising workers, raising more productive members of society, and you don't need a man and a woman for that. You just don't. You need two perspectives usually.
That we have built, and society does actually have an interest in providing a framework for monogamous male-female relationships. These are the foundation stone of any successful, durable society.
Yeah, definitely. We should actually like try to get people to have kids. But I think that
Totally.
the marriage issue for gay people is just they want their relationship to be seen as valid. I don't know if there's another
Right.
way.
I agree with you.
Their relationship.
Also, it's not even just a seen as valid sort of thing. Being seen as valid is like, that's nice and all. What gay people want is to be equal, is to be valid under the law. It's not seen as valid. I don't care if, like, gay people are getting married and Ben Shapiro personally doesn't see them as equal. I care if the government does, because the government is not supposed to be discriminating against certain groups. Like, that's, the government works for all of us. If you're paying taxes, you have at least a right to be treated equally under the law, under certain circumstances, obviously. If you're like a racist white supremacist breaking the law, you've disqualified yourself.
So first of all, I don't think it's in the states. I don't think it's up to the state to. First of all, if you're looking to the state to decide the validity of your relationship, you're doing life wrong. Just generally speaking, I don't look to the state to validate my marriage.
Again, bad art. Yeah. So I'm not really shocked. The person that they got on here is like, they're mostly just asking like and posing questions that these are the sorts of kind of I think favorable questions you're asking about, like the dichotomy of like small government, big government, who cares, doesn't matter. Doing the whole like people want to see their relationships as valid. It doesn't matter. Like, it should be valid under the law regardless of everything else. Like the validity part should only matter from a governmental perspective when it comes to allocating funds and subsidization.
I've been bewildered by this.
Okay.
Like this idea that, oh my God, well, now the state is validating my marriage. Like I didn't get married to my wife because I wanted whatever tax penalty there was attached to getting married. I have two marital documents. I have the one from the state, which is required in order for us to file jointly as a couple and other tax issues.
Which, yeah, at the end of the day, also there are legal advantages. So it would also be arbitrarily holding a group back from tax havens, not tax havens, like tax incentives, I should say.
And then I have the one that I actually care about, which is my Jewish document that I got from the rabbis. That's the one that actually says that I'm married.
Aren't you cute?
Actually, on two separate dates, I was married secularly in the United States months before I was married in Israel under Jewish law. The one,
right? Yeah, it's a secular nation. The one we care about is the secular one. I don't care if you personally think the marriage is equal. I don't care. It doesn't matter if Ben Shapiro thinks a marriage is equal, as long as the government believes so and the government treats it as such. That's the only thing I really care about.
One that allowed me to sleep with my wife was the one where I got married under Jewish law, right? So that's
you needed a dog. You needed a bunch of Jews to sign you off on sleeping with your wife.
Anybody who's saying I want the state to sanctify my marriage because the state is the arbiter of good and evil, I'm very uncomfortable with the state being the arbiter of good and evil to the extent that like you look to them to sanctify.
I don't feel like government should be interested in the in the reproductive interests of individuals. It's just not something I really think they should be concerned about. I don't really think that's government's role. I think government's role at most is to create a environment, a society that is preferable, or maybe not preferable is the word, that is accommodating towards new people being added to society. But I'm not one of these people who thinks that it's like, the government should be concerned with how many kids people are having. It's just not something we also don't really have a problem. We don't have that problem right now. So, I think the government doesn't really need to be bothered with this. If people want to be in a married union, they should be allowed to. Let them have all the tax laws, have all the rest of that stuff.
Us for things that we do in the privacy of our bedroom. And everybody in the United States is like, okay, fine. Because the truth is that long before Bowers versus Hardwick in 1989, long before Lawrence versus the gay Lawrence versus Texas.
There you go. The gay Texas.
That,
you got it, Ben.
Laws had basically been unenforceable in the United States for like a very long time. They were on the books, but they really were not enforced.
Which is a problem. Like, you can say, like, oh, well, they really weren't enforced very strong. It doesn't matter. Like, the fact that they were there is the problem, because at any point somebody can come along and begin to enforce those laws in more radical ways. Like, that's like it's the same as there's a state recently in the last midterm elections that abolished slavery. Like, in 2022. Now you can say, hey, that hasn't been used. Nobody's been enslaved unless you've been to prison. Nobody's been enslaved in that sort of way. This was just, we should get it off our books. Like, no, the fact that it was in your books is the problem. That is an inherent problem with the system, because it's enshrining a process of owning somebody. That's not good. Like, there's like the fact that it's there is in and of itself bad.
How do you even enforce that, really? So those
laws, I don't know. You have the cops show up, and
most Americans were not in favor of enforcing such laws. Okay, then it was, we want civil unions so that we can visit our gay partners in the hospital, and everybody was kind of like, okay, fine, sure, fine.
Are you not merciful?
Well, now we want marriage. We want it to be called exactly the same thing. And people went, wait, hold up a second. And then the Supreme Court overruled the people and said, okay, well, we're just going to do it anyway. And then it went to, and if you in your own life, in your business, do not sanctify our marriage, you are now a bigot. And that slide went really, really quickly. So I'm perfectly willing to say that anybody should be able to have anybody visit them in the hospital. I don't care. You should be able to will your property to whomever you want. I really don't care. It makes no difference to me. It's when you start setting a state standard for what marriage constitutes that I have to sound off, because, again, the argument that was constantly made about gay marriage is, how does my gay marriage affect your marriage? And the answer is, it doesn't. What does affect my marriage, and what affects every marriage, is the state's definition of marriage. Right? The state does a lot of things, and the state's activities affect everyone. I mean, we're all members of the society.
This is incoherent. I don't even know what I'm supposed to say to this, because none of it's just getting upset that somebody is like participating in the same system. Like Ben, I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. But like, this is incoherent. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to your life. It doesn't matter if like your marriage is also shared with is the same term that's shared with a marriage that is also between a man and a man. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter. It's a definition. Definitions are used so that we all have a shared understanding of what like the word means. Like I don't know what I don't know what he's arguing. I genuinely don't know what he's arguing. Like, I might be too stupid or something, but like, I'm not even sure what he's trying to argue for, because this just sounds like crybaby noises to me right now. Like, what? Oh, you're upset because what? You have to share rights as a married person? Sorry. Like,
you can make that argument out literally anything on a completely different score, not morally equivalent in any way. You could easily say, back in 1840, if you were
Tim, I would say,
how does my owning a slave bother you?
Tim, it really seems like it's just for whatever reason, it really just seems like it's just something that gets under their skin. Like it really can't be more than that, right? Like, there's not like some wave of gay married couples, flooding the streets. Like, what's the big deal? Like, what, like Ben is concerned because he has a religious definition, not realizing that he's arguing against the secular definition, which is what like the state is based on. Is in America, at least. If he wants to go to Israel, he can live by the theocratic, religious doctrine and the religious understanding of marriage. But again, that's a theocracy. This is a democracy. This is a liberal democracy, and we're a secular nation. So I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, play in the field that you're in. Like, go to a theocracy, and then you can go and make those arguments. Like, I care about your religious definition of marriage.
Up in Massachusetts. And the answer is, well, when society sets rules about slavery, that says something about the entire society. Now, again, I'm not making any sort of equivalence between gay marriage and slavery. Not even remotely the same thing.
Hope
the point
not.
that I'm making is that societal rules are very different from the question of how does someone's individual activity affect me on a personal level.
Yeah. So if you want it to be, let's say, gay marriage illegal, does that not sound like Congress making laws with respect to establishment of religion?
I'm not saying that it should be illegal. You should be able to do whatever you want in your state. I'm saying that the government does not have to give you a subsidy for purposes of a thing that has no societal.
We're doing the state. Ben, drop the state thing. We already know that Republicans want to pass a federal law. Please stop lying.
They're polygamous relationships. Is it up to the government to now sanctify those?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, so if there was no subsidy and no tax breaks for being married, then gay marriage would be totally fine? Because that sounds reasonable to me.
If there are no subsidies and no tax, you're asking two separate questions. One is on a societal level, should people be able to go down to their local Unitarian church and get a document? You should be able to do whatever you want. I don't care. When it comes to the question,
I also don't need to go to a church to get married. Like, that's not, marriage is not a exclusively what's the word, it's not exclusive to a Christian or even Jewish church. Like, it's not a thing. It's marriage is rather what's the word, universal in terms of its history. Like, unions between two people, notice I said two people, have always been around. That's not like a new phenomenon. It's just the word marriage and the defining of it, of the more, like, I guess probably they would say Judeo-Christian reading of it is what's new, I suppose.
Question of should government subsidize in any way male-male relationships
Absolutely.
on the same level of male-female relationships?
Why not?
Is no, because society does not have the same interest in those two things. This is why marriage has been historically reserved and defined, not even reserved.
Again, this is why I said, like, I don't think government should really give a shit about that sort of thing. Doesn't matter. The only thing they should care about is creating happiness. That should be the only thing government should really be concerned about in terms of their societal makeup. You create a happy society, you don't have to worry about any of the rest of the shit.
Defined as man-woman, because the entire basis was a man and a woman might produce a child. You need legal restrictions around that.
You could just get a surrogate.
Protect the woman mostly.
You could just get a surrogate.
Call it, Aaron. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to.
Nope. Stop it. You're not doing it. You know the thing. You know the thing that they tell, like at the end of all YouTube videos where they tell you to, like, click on one of these, like, things to watch more videos. Yeah, I've been meaning to film one of those. So that's what I was doing. I was just setting it up to film one.